In the grim early days of World War II's Pacific theater, American bomber crews faced a harsh reality. When enemy fighters broke through their escort screen, survival depended on overwhelming defensive firepower. For the North American B-25 Mitchell, the solution was astonishing. It would need to carry more firepower than several fighters combined. What began as a desperate field improvisation soon transformed the B-25 into an airborne gunship unlike anything the war had seen before. In early 1942, newly built B-25s originally destined for Europe were diverted to the Pacific, arriving in Australia by April. With minimal training, crews flew these aircraft straight into intense combat zones. Standard bombing runs at 10,000 to 12,000 feet placed the B-25s directly in the effective range of Japanese flak batteries and Zero interceptors, turning formation raids into deadly missions. The limited fuel capacity of escort fighters like the P-40 and P-39 prevented them from accompanying the B-25s deep into enemy territory. This left the medium bombers to face flak and fighters alone on the most critical leg of their journey. Many B-25s were intercepted and crippled 50 to 100 miles from their targets, forcing them to jettison their bombs or abort the mission entirely, resulting in heavy losses. Desperate for results, pilots began contravening doctrine by flying below official altitude minimums to evade flak and improve bombing accuracy. While this saved lives, the shift to low-level tactics brought new dangers, as small arms and light anti-aircraft fire inflicted losses equal to or greater than those at medium altitudes. On one infamous April raid over New Guinea, 6 of 18 B-25s were lost, a staggering 30% attrition rate in a single mission. When General George Kenney assumed command of the 5th Air Force in August 1942, he recognized that adhering to traditional doctrine would mean certain defeat. A groundbreaking solution came from Major Paul "Pappy" Gunn, who proposed replacing the B-25's bombardier station with a solid nose packed with heavy machine guns. His concept called for up to 8 50-caliber Browning M2 machine guns in the nose, supplemented by waist, dorsal, and tail guns, giving the bomber immense forward firepower. Although Air Force orthodoxy held that bombers were for bombing and fighters for strafing, Gunn's design merged the two roles. Many senior officers initially dismissed it as a reckless misuse of a valuable airframe. However, General Kenney greenlit the modifications immediately, overruling skeptics. In the rugged conditions of New Guinea, where air bases were often muddy runways carved from the jungle, Gunn's crews began converting the B-25C and D models. Without factory tooling, they hand-cut aluminum sheets, hammered them into shape, and riveted them together in open-air workshops. Adding the heavy guns and ammunition shifted the aircraft's center of gravity forward, requiring careful adjustments to avoid dangerous instability. Each test firing was a gamble, as crews worked to ensure the structure would hold and that vibrations wouldn't shake critical systems apart mid-flight. In March 1943, the heavily modified B-25 strafers faced their first major combat test. A Japanese convoy of 8 troop transports and 4 destroyers, carrying nearly 7,000 soldiers, posed a direct threat to the Allied foothold in New Guinea. The Allied attack plan combined the B-25's new strafing capability with an experimental tactic, skip bombing, where bombs were released low enough to skip across the water like stones before striking a ship's hull. When the B-25 struck, they roared in at mast-top height, just 200 to 250 feet above the sea. Their forward-firing 50-caliber machine guns blazed, suppressing anti-aircraft fire and disorienting Japanese gunners. The concentrated streams of fire shredded ship defenses, clearing the way for deadly bomb runs. The skip bombs slammed into the ship's hulls just above the waterline, detonating with devastating effect. Within hours, the Japanese formation collapsed. All 8 transports and 4 destroyers were sunk, leaving only a few destroyers to rescue survivors. Reports from the Battle of the Bismarck Sea convinced USAAF planners and North American aviation executives that the improvised gunships were far more than a one-off success. By mid-1943, North American began re-engineering the B-25 from the ground up, drawing directly from Pappy Gunn's field modifications. This effort culminated in the B-25G, introduced in late 1943. It was the first factory-built gunship, featuring a solid nose housing a 75mm M4 cannon alongside multiple 50-caliber machine guns. The B-25H followed in early 1944, replacing the heavy M4 cannon with a lighter T-13E1 and increasing the number of forward-firing 50 calibers to 8. However, the cannon-armed variants presented new challenges. The bone-jarring recoil shook the aircraft violently, popping rivets and rattling panels. The massive muzzle flash and smoke often obscured the pilot's vision at critical moments. Furthermore, loading was a slow, manual process, requiring the navigator to wrestle a 15-pound shell into the breech under intense G-forces. Against maneuvering targets, the cannon's slow rate of fire and inconsistent accuracy proved less effective than the continuous hail of 50 caliber rounds. Many crews came to prefer the sustained firepower of machine guns, which delivered more reliable tactical damage. Flying at mast-top height, often just 20 to 50 feet above the water or treetops, left no margin for error. Each strafing run was an all-or-nothing attack, requiring pilots to fly straight into the densest enemy defenses. Japanese anti-aircraft positions were expertly concealed, enabling devastating point-blank fire. At such low altitudes, even small-caliber flak could shred control surfaces, puncture fuel tanks, or kill crew members instantly. The heavy forward armament made the B-25 strafers sluggish and vulnerable when dodging fire. An engine hit was almost always fatal, as there was rarely enough altitude to recover or bail out. Despite the risks, the gunship concept was a resounding success. Productional B-25H and late-model B-25J gunships rolled off assembly lines in large numbers. An arms race among different B-25 units saw some field-modified aircraft equipped with as many as 14 forward-firing 50 caliber machine guns, with some variants pushing the number to an unprecedented 18. This potent concept quickly spread from the 5th Air Force to other units across the Pacific. By the war's end, the B-25 had evolved from a vulnerable medium bomber into a doctrinal cornerstone of Allied air power. It proved that a single aircraft could combine the sweeping firepower of multiple fighters, fundamentally redefining the role of the medium bomber in modern warfare. The modified B-25 gunships were more than just an experimental twist on a familiar airframe. They represented a pivotal turning point in aerial combat.